What makes a population susceptible to libertarianism or a focus purely on liberty, but equating liberty with license?
Right. Well, it's a good question. I think that liberalism, that its attraction is in its simplicity. Okay. I mean, it's kind of a dogmatic thing. It's kind of a fanatical thing if you think about it. To say, I've got one principle, and that principle is going to answer like all of our questions. A normal conservative view would be something much more like what you find in the preamble to the American Constitution. That was actually written by conservatives, and so it begins with, I mean, the first value that the Federalists, when they put together the Constitution, the first value that they wanted was a more perfect union. And notice, a more perfect union that's not about individual liberty. It's almost the opposite. It's about bringing people together with sufficient unity and force so that they can achieve collective goals, national goals. So there's that. There's peace. There's justice. There's 7 different values in the preamble to the Constitution. 7 different goals of government, and one of them is the blessings of liberty. But it's one of 7. In a traditional Anglo-American politics, there's many different aims of government. They need to be balanced in a way that is fruitful and productive for individuals, for families, and for the nation. That's the goal. But after World War II, I mean, I write this in my new book, that I think that after the 2 world wars, there was a desperation, an exhaustion that led to a kind of utopianism. People said, we can't ever go through this again. And the answer that they came up with was this Enlightenment liberalism, which is, it's like fanatically holding on to the principle of individual liberty and the equality of liberty for all individuals. Look, it did some important things. I mean, we have to admire people who, after the Second World War, said, look, we just sacrificed hundreds of thousands of lives in order to fight racism, and we can't continue having Jim Crow in America. We have to find a way to end that. So that's an admirable thing. But the problem is that in order to, instead of passing laws that specifically said, we're gonna end the persecution of Black Americans, instead of doing that, they came up with this super abstract theory that everybody's perfectly equal, everybody's perfectly free, and the courts and the justice system are going to create an equality. So it's not just blacks and whites. Men have to be perfectly equal to women, and Jews and Christians and atheists, they all have to be perfectly equal. And foreigners from different countries have to be equal, and they have to be equal to people who grew up in the United States. And then it just keeps going. So then you can't discriminate on the basis of age. You can't discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation. And people just keep inventing new ways to say, oh, look, I see an inequality. Let's take all of government and bring it to bear to try to force society to end that inequality.
And let me interject here if I might.
Yes.
And I want to qualify what you're saying or clarify what you're saying. When you're saying equality, you mean equal outcome, not equal protection of the law.
Yeah, for sure. Look, equal protection of the law is one of our most ancient and cherished values. It's in the Bible explicitly, and it's handed down like as the cornerstone of civilized law everywhere. But equality of outcome is a utopian fantasy. And the more dimensions that you add, like the more ways in which you say, oh, and also I want equality of outcome in that way, and in that way, and in this other way. What you're doing is you begin with something that's a fantasy, you apply huge government force, and then you keep inventing additional ways to keep trying to force things. Look, it's just suicide to try to pursue that course.